output-based management. Working a lot of overtime and the associated assumption of hardworking employees is becoming increasingly outdated. Just because someone sits in front of a screen for many hours in the office or at home does not necessarily mean that these people are also productive and efficient. In many areas of our work, we have already defined clear factors that show us whether someone is performing or not. This is especially true in jobs where you can be measured by using numbers. There we have personal KPIs and annual targets which you have to achieve. In some positions, however, measuring performance is not quite so simple. In this case, it is necessary to define the key performance indicators, the measures and goals together, which are used to measure whether one has been productive or successful. What we can clearly see is that we have a shift from time spent to results delivered. One of my clients had the most productive year in its history after introducing hybrid work. This is largely due to the employees working more productively at home. In the beginning, the assumption was that people would be too distracted in the home office or that they would have to motivate themselves too much. However, this assumption was quickly disproved. In some cases, even the opposite was true. Due to the social interactions in the office, most employees do not get to 8 hours of focused and productive work per day. Now, if individuals finish the same work faster at the home office than in the office, let's say in 6 hours, they have effectively saved themselves 2 hours. So companies will have to think about how to deal with this in the future. After all, you are paid for the time you spend working, in most of the cases, and not for the results you deliver. In the future, the focus for performance measurement will therefore be more on the result and less on the many hours. This means that as leaders, we will have to think about how and what goals we define with our employees, what work packages we put together, and how we ultimately evaluate and measure the performance. Furthermore, this topic also makes it clear how important trust becomes. Another factor to consider is the topic of self-organization. Some people are better at this, while others struggle. If you think about your team, you'll probably immediately think of people who you know do a good job at home and whom you trust in this regard. On the other hand, there are probably some people you are not 100% sure about, right? Now you could of course try to insist on more presence in the office with those you don't trust very much. But whether that makes things better is another question. Because even in the office, you can't know if they are working productively or just killing time. So you see, performance is not necessarily dependent on where you work, but rather on what goals you set and how you track and measure the results. If you're not sure what performance to measure in your employees, discuss it with them. Work out together what makes sense and how they can show you as a leader that they are actively contributing to the results. Transparency plays a particularly important role here. The classical micromanager who follows his employees' every move and has to know everything will have a very difficult time in a hybrid system. On the other hand, too little supervision is also a disadvantage, since you should know what your employees are doing all day. So try to create a balance. Instead of constantly having to ask whether this or that has been done, first define yourself what information you actually need, and then make a plan with your team on how to get it. This can happen with a stand-up, a sure fix, but also asynchronously via a Kanban board. It is only important that you make it clear to your employees that this is not about checking on them in a narrower sense, but also about them and their performance being seen and noticed. Think about how you currently measure the performance of your individual employees. Is it mainly hard factors like numbers, data and facts? Or are there also soft factors on the interpersonal level? On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you per employee with the performance evaluation? Note, this does not mean the performance itself. And do you perhaps have a personal bias, for example a proximity bias, that leads you to rate the performance of individual persons higher or perhaps even lower?